Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to ranking all my January reads. I thought to spice these wrap-up videos a little bit, instead of just going over all the books I read in a month in chronological order, I would tell them from worst to best, to save the sweet for the last, you know. I've never done it, so we're gonna see how well or bad it works. So let me know in the comments whether you prefer this one or like I did all my previous ones. So without further ado, grab yourself a drink, get cozy, and let's get started. First, I suggest we talk about the stats for the month. In January, I read 7 books, and those 7 books resulted into 3,102 pages. The average rating was 3.64, and of course, my most read genre was fantasy. The worst book from this year so far is The Atlas Six by Olivie. Not gonna lie, I expected a lot from this book and I was 100% sure that I'm gonna enjoy it. However, that unfortunately did not happen. There was absolutely nothing that I enjoyed about this book. There was absolutely nothing that I connected with. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care about the plot itself, and there wasn't that much of a plot. Personally, the plot of the book felt as the characters were trying to build some alliances, then they stopped building those alliances, they just slept with each other, and this is the Atlas Six. Throughout the whole book, I wanted to DNF it so many times, but I decided to push myself through this because, as we know, the endings of fantasy books are often the best, and no. It definitely sets up for the next books in the series, but I have absolutely no interest in continuing the series, so I will not be doing that. Overall, I was very disappointed in this book and I was very sad about it. It is dark academia fantasy, which I usually tend to enjoy, but this one was a complete flop. That's why the Atlas Six is in 7th place. On the 6th place is another book that I was very sure that I'm gonna enjoy, and I was surprised and also disappointed that I ended up not loving the book at all, and that is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I have read the whole Kerry trilogy last year and I liked it. It wasn't nothing phenomenal, extraordinary, but it was definitely a fun time and I had a pleasant time reading it. And so many people were claiming that Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy is even better than the first trilogy in this whole universe, so I was very much excited, but someone lied to me. Because what the hell was this? Maybe I didn't enjoy it as much because I had way too high expectations because of what other people were saying and how obsessed they were with this series, but I didn't care about anything in this book. And if I don't care about anything, you can kind of see the pattern that I'm not gonna enjoy the book. It just felt so weird and naive and almost childish, even though I am only slightly older than the main character in the book. Why does she act like she's 5? It honestly felt like a fever dream and not in the good way. And the plot of the book was about nothing at all. Absolutely did not care about it, and that's why that's one of the worst books I read in January. Place number 5 holds Nightshade by Autumn Woods. This book is in the same reading block as the Atlas Six, so if you're interested, definitely go check it out. The best thing about this book was definitely its vibes. The academical setting and in rainy, moody Scotland. Absolutely chef's kiss. However, besides that, I didn't like anything. I was mostly excited for the mystery plot, however, when I found out that it also had a romance plot, I was very much intrigued. However, the romance felt extremely rushed. Personally, it went from 0 to 100 in literally like a chapter, and I like my romance slow. This was anything but slow. When they were together, yeah, they were cute, they were adorable. However, I did not like the way they got together because it was not gradual. It felt way too rushed. As for the mystery, also didn't really care about it. Also, I feel like it wasn't the main focus of the book closer to the end because we focused more on the romance, so didn't really like that as well. And I've seen so many people say that the ending was absolutely insane, one of the craziest endings they have read. And while I agree, it was low-key crazy, it wasn't as crazy as I expected it to be. Definitely intriguing enough to want to pick up the next book, however, I'm still kind of disappointed about it. Overall, I would recommend this book if you're looking for an academical romance with a mystery little subplot, but personally it fell kind of flat. On 4th place is actually the first book I have read this year, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. Like for all previous books, I had extremely high expectations for this one, and maybe that's why I was disappointed. I didn't like it as much as I was hoping I would. I knew what to expect. and I got what I expected. However, I still was expecting more. Maybe cozy fantasy is just not for me because there was just not enough action and it just felt way too childish almost and like a fairy tale. And even though I love fairy tales with my whole entire heart, I grew up on them, I was reading them literally since I learned how to read, this one didn't quite scratch the itch that I was hoping it would. Don't get me wrong, I definitely had an amazing time with this one and I loved Emily and Wendell together, and actually they are the reason why I want to continue reading this series, but I think I have to be in a very specific mood to want to pick up it again, when I'm craving something slow, not intense, just cozy and cutesy. And even though the cover doesn't really give it, it is an amazing book to pick up in winter because it is set in a remote winter island. So yeah, the cover is definitely very misleading. Now, let's talk about the best 3 books I read this month. On place number 3 is Tag Your It by Kerry Wilkinson. This was my first ever received ARC, and I can tell you that I'm off to a good start because it was such a quick, fast-paced, easy, funny read. However, even though it was said that it's gonna be a thriller, it didn't really feel like it up until the very end. We're basically set in a reality TV show where people are competing for this enormously huge money prize. I didn't really explain it well while I was filming, so I gotta do this in post-production, but the main plot of the book is basically focused around a murder that happens closer to the end of this reality TV show. And so as you read, you're also as a reader wary of everyone because you don't know who to suspect. You don't even know who dies and who is supposedly, allegedly the killer. So it was also very interesting following and trying to guess, trying to decide who had the motives, who had the possibilities, and why they would do what they did. And I really loved the outcome. I loved how everything wrapped up. I did not see the ending coming. I did see like 2 pages before it happened, but we don't count that. So it was very fun, very interesting, and it definitely kept you invested to continue because you wanted to know what happened. Because it all was revealed almost in chronological order, except for little inserts of some of the characters being interviewed. However, each single day, some people will be eliminated, and the tag decides who will have to go. Each morning, one person gets the tag that they have to pass to the next person, and to perform this tag, you have to do some weird things. For example, maybe like tap on the shoulder or make another person laugh, and then they're tagged. So at the beginning, everyone was of course very suspicious of every little thing other people did because they thought that they were tagged. So they were all very wary of each other, but of course, as the time passed, there were some alliances, friendships, relationships growing, and I really enjoyed seeing that. One thing that bothered me a little bit was the lack of scenery explanation. I personally have a very vivid imagination, so I always see books like movies in my head, and with this one, unfortunately, I had some troubles with that because I couldn't quite imagine where the characters were and what they were doing. But nonetheless, I very liked this book, very much fun. It was very fast paced and short chapters definitely helped it. I'm a sucker for short chapters, so that is another point what I enjoyed about this book. And I feel like this book has a high potential of pulling you out of a reading slump if you're looking for anything like that. On number 2 sits the first 5-star that I got this year, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I also have a reading vlog on this book, so make sure to check it out. I absolutely did not expect to love this book as much as I did. I went into it pretty blind, except for hearing a lot of amazing reviews about this series specifically, and V. Schwab's fantasy books in general. And it was just so good and so fun. I loved following Kel and Lila, and their dynamic together was absolutely adorable. The world where this fantasy is set in is such unique. We basically have 4 different Londons: grey, white, red, and black. And Kel is one of 2 people that can still travel through these Londons because they are completely different. They are nothing similar at all. And because I think you're better to go into this book blind, I'm not gonna elaborate any more on that. But it is an amazing book and I literally cannot wait to continue this series. And now, drumroll please, for the best book that I read in January and this year so far. The Will of the Many by James Islington. It took me some time to get through this book, not because I wasn't liking it, but because it is quite chunky and it is quite different to what I read throughout the whole month before it, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. I don't think I've ever read a book that was so thoroughly structured. The world building, the characters, the story, everything felt so thought out and I loved it. I loved our main character this, and I feel like he was an amazing character to follow in this setting because we were learning about the world, the structure, the magic alongside him. So I didn't feel quite as lost as I often feel reading other fantasy books. And the writing was simple yet absolutely beautiful. It wasn't difficult at all to understand, but I feel like it set this world and the setting absolutely perfectly. All the friendships, the alliances, the relationships of the book were so interesting to follow, and I really loved that. The ending broke me. I cried like a baby at it. Even though I thought something like this would come, it was still very much painful, and I still have not forgiven James Islington for it. I had to stare at the wall after reading the last couple of pages because what do you mean? What do you mean? Literally. Thankfully, The Strength of the Few is on my favorite TBR, so you better believe me when I tell you it's my next read. So even despite that it took me ages to get through this book, it was worth every single second. And these are all the books that I read in the month of January. I wouldn't say it was the perfect reading month, but it definitely wasn't awful because I got 2 5 stars. That's amazing. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And also let me know in the comments what are some books that you read in January so that we can chit chat about them. Thank you so much for staying here with me, and I'll see you in my next videos. Bye!